Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Albany Med, COVID ward. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and it's great to be back.
Good to have you back.
Yeah, I miss everybody, like incredibly. I'm getting a lot of love, which has been very, very sweet.
Okay.
And yeah.
How you feeling? How you feeling today?
I'm feeling upbeat. Mara came and visited yesterday, which was great.
Always uplifting to the spirit when Mara shows
She
up.
was. We laughed the whole time.
Okay.
We read, and Damodar Priya came and brought me lunch, and Eva is bringing me lunch today.
Beautiful.
It is beautiful. And Sachi Sutta came and brought me a bunch of snacks. And a Lady Di came right before I got to the hospital. Lady Di.
Lady Di came?
She came over to my house and just surprised me with this incredible, loving Trinidadian feast.
Look at that.
Sweet. Yeah. I really want to thank everybody who's extended a lot of love. It means so much. And it's like these hospitals, it's like, I really appreciate the people who work here, but it's like, it's so not designed to get better. It's like, it's I feel like I'm 5 minutes from a prison in one sense. And I get it. I'm in isolation. So I get that, but it's, first of all, I think if you're running a hospital, whether you believe in God or not, put some God pictures on the wall. Whether you believe in God, it's just like, let's just say we're going to believe in God if we're in the hospital. Let's just say that, okay? Even if you don't, because people need faith in something when they're in the hospital. They need even faith in an afterlife or faith in that you're going to get better or something. Otherwise, it becomes very, very sterile. And play some uplifting music. I'm not even saying bhajans, but bhajans. Like classic, play Mozart, play something.
I get
Put
it.
some pretty pictures on the wall. Put some nature pictures. I'm not even saying Lord Jesus Christ, Lord Krishna. Put a picture of a waterfall, anything. Throw a plant in here.
Okay.
Throw a plant. Cactuses don't need a lot of,
Care.
maintenance and care. Just throw some cactuses in here. I'm ready to chip in to buy cactus for this place.
What about the it was funny because I was with Gita Priya and I were talking yesterday, and we're saying, because we have that running joke with you, that when you and I have been to the Bhaktivedanta hospital countless times in Mumbai, which is this incredible spiritual hospital, right? But you and I have been taking tours on it so many times that, like, how many times have you been taken on a tour of the hospital?
Yeah.
And so whenever you're taken on a tour of the hospital, you get a little grumpy or something like that. Like, I've done this too many times.
Sarcastic, grumpy. I was like,
sarcastic. Yeah. And so we're thinking of, like, wouldn't you want to be on one of those tours again now, right? Because that hospital is so, it's everything that you're saying, right? It's got music playing. It's got devotional music playing. All the people are so loving and caring. It's got like
They don't care what
different
religion
channels.
you are. They don't
Yeah,
care
they
if
don't
you're
care.
Muslim, a Jew,
Yeah.
Hindu. They're just like doing their morning prayers. And you know what? Let them do their morning prayers. Everybody do their prayers. You want your
Right.
doctors thinking about prayers.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of the staff. It's sad, but like, and I get it. They're probably overwhelmed and overworked, but they're like, it was really like a little morose, truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was not
That-
like a lot. It's not like a lot of, okay, you can do it. Okay, you pull through. It was just sort of like flatline staring me.
yeah.
And you know, with the COVID too, you've got layers of masks, and you can't even see the person, so you see their
More
face.
so, yeah.
But you know that I will say, me and Mara had this conversation. Like, what if it wasn't for Mara? You know, Eva, all these people are bringing me prasad. I can't eat this food here.
Yeah.
It's like on a vegan diet, and I was saying, why is it so? Why have we created something so difficult in our country to get like cooking simple?
Mhm.
Like you go to that hospital in Mumbai, and I'm staying there for the food.
I know, it's so good. Right.
I was like, you're kidding? This is what I get to eat?
Yeah.
This is like better than I get at home. And Mara was just saying, you know, it's what did you call it, Mara? Big food. You get like big pharma, big tech, big food, you know. And I don't think you can just do that. I don't think you can just be downstairs and make a pot of rice and dal. I don't think you can do that here. They have to bring in food from, who does it? Kraft or big food services.
Yeah.
Cisco food services. And this is like the most important element to our healing, right? When I'm putting in my mouth.
Well, the two things you're talking about, the loving care of the people too, right? Even just their mood, of care is important. And then the food that you eat. Yeah. You gotta uplift those spirits. You know, it's beautiful in that in the Bhakti-yogi hospital. You're right. It's like, first of all, all the staff, they're like so caring and loving, and then the food is absolutely delicious and healthy, and the music is all uplifting and devotional. It's being played all the time, and then they wheel around this Jagannath temple, right? They have a temple on wheels, you know, of like, it's like a Krishna temple. And they roll it into your room, right? And every day you can have a little darshan. It's the whole place is so special, but it's not just like it's some kind of sentimental quasi hospital or something like that. It's a really very well equipped, well staffed hospital. But it's got this spiritual side to it that really makes a difference. I stayed there for a week once.
Oh really?
And
I stayed there a couple days.
Yeah, and it was just it blew my mind. Just it's a fact what you're saying. Like, it can become morose because there's so much suffering goes on in the hospital. There's so much tension that and it really takes some incredible spiritual strength to remain upbeat and happy and caring.
I mean, I'm a pretty upbeat, happy, caring person, and I'm struggling. I had to have I'm luckily I was feeling energetic yesterday and today. The whole week before, I had no energy. I can't even describe it. Like, my energy level was like, look at the wall. That was okay, I'm awake. I'm going to be looking at the wall now for a couple hours. And I was like, okay, time for a break. That was exhausting. I'm going to take a 2-hour nap. Okay, back to looking at the wall. That's where my energy levels have been. But the last 2 days have been good. So, I just decided, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to
do the show.
Well, no, I got up early, like 3:30.
Okay, and just wake up and
what do you call it? I did a puja in my mind.
The Manasa puja,
a Manasa puja, the worship, which consists, if you're not a worship of the guru, worship of your deities, worship of Krishna.
But you do it in the mind.
But you're doing it all in the mind, which is actually can be even more focused than when you're doing it with tangible deities, because you really have to fine tune your thought process, and you get to offer incense, and you get to design, like, what is your flavor incense? What are the flowers you're offering? What is the bell you're ringing? Like, what is, and it takes over the mind, and I think it's important. And then I been chanting Nishringa Kavacha every day. So fortunately with YouTube, you can just get on Nishringa Kavacha and chant it through, and prayer Nishringa Day for protection. And then just play some bhajans while I am chanting japa. And got about 13 rounds. That was the first time I chanted on my beads in probably 5 days.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Ruggle. Well, you're back here at least for today. Let's hope this strength stays with you and it stays nice and steady.
Yeah. Let's see.
And let's get into it, okay? I think we have I made a promise at the end of the last show, right? Did I not, Mira?
You did. Karuna's very eager to hear your answer.
Okay, so for how old is Karuna?
8.
8 years old? Okay. So what was Karuna, I hope you're listening. Where are you?
She's here.
She's here.
Okay, yeah. So what was the question?
So her question was, why was Brahma born from the Lord's navel and not another part?
Oh, not another part. Okay, so that's a Bhagavatam related question because we've been hearing in second canto and third canto how it describes that the universal creator, Brahma, he's born that first of all there's Mahavishnu, there's a form of Lord Vishnu, and not from his navel but from his skin, from the pores of his skin, unlimited universes come, and then within every one of those universes, Lord Vishnu again lies down on the water, and then from his navel grows the stem of the lotus, and then Lord Brahma is born on that lotus, and then he creates, right? So Karuna's question is, why is he born from the navel and not some other part of the body? Raghunath, we're turning to you.
Well, the belly button, the umbilical cord, which turns into the belly button, that's like the magic spot.
Okay, there you go. That was the answer.
This is the answer. It's the magic spot. Well, it's one of these things like this is the whole magic of birth has to do with that umbilical cord. And it's the whole child is fed and nourished and
right. That's what I was thinking. The nourishment goes through that channel, right?
Yeah. And then when that's over, it obviously comes off and there's the belly button. So I could see it in the same way as like the nourishment of Lord Brahma, who is in one sense an extension of Lord Vishnu. It's all coming from that umbilical cord, but outward, growing outward, out of the belly button.
Yeah.
And then from that nourishment and from that intelligence, it seems like there is some. It just seems like that connection to being fed through the umbilical cord, both for our own micro way with having babies, and with Lord Brahma, it seems just like a natural macro understanding of nurturing Brahma, who therefore nurtures, creates, and maintains the entire universe.
So what is Karuna's little sister's name? Madhurya, right? So like Karuna, you know that Madhurya was in your mother's belly, before she came out, and then there was that tube connected to her that went right into her navel, and that was giving her everything she needed, like the food that she needed and the air that she needed and all of that, right? And so that's like a natural place for the connection to, like, it's just like if there's a hose or something, like like maybe your mother has a garden in the back or something, and then you have a hose and there's like a
Kaustubha's first sex education talk.
It's sex. It's like, so there's a hose, that like connects to that, where the spout is, right? And then it connects on the other end. So like that navel is a natural place for the hose to connect, and all of the nourishment comes through that. But you can think of like when you look at a tree too, like, right, a tree is in the ground and it's got its roots there, and then all the nourishment is coming through the ground and going up the stem of that, the trunk of the tree. And so, right, that the stem of the lotus could be connected right there, and it's a natural place, right? It's the magic place, like Raghunath says. And then it can go right up, everything that Brahma needs. It says that all the planetary systems are in the stem of that lotus, So like everything is going through there, and everything that Brahma needs is going right there. It's a natural connection spot. That's it, right?
There you go.
And but I read something here. Prabhupada speaks a little bit about this, so I got a little something that Prabhupada said too. He says Brahma, when he was born, he was created not by ordinary father and mother, but he was created on a lotus flower stem, which grew from the navel of from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Therefore, he has another name, which is Aja. What does Aja mean?
Unborn.
Unborn, yeah.
And
Like it's not an ordinary birth. Ja means birth, and aja is like he doesn't take birth like everybody else. He was not born like an ordinary human being. He was, he is born by father and mother, but he's not born like an ordinary being who's born from a father and mother. He was born, of course, father was there, Garbhodakshi Vishnu. So Vishnu is his father, but he did not come through the womb of a mother. This is the omnipotency. This means he's got the power to do whatever he wants. Lord Vishnu is lying down on the Shesha bed. He's lying down on the snake, Lord Shesha. And Lakshmi is in the service of massaging his lotus feet. But Vishnu did not take the help of Lakshmi to give birth to Brahma. He was personally born from the navel. Therefore, we should understand, now this is important, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead can perform anything he likes from any part of his body. Right? He could have born him from his elbow or whatever he wanted to do. But that's the natural connection spot, it seems like, right? And so he goes on. That's why we always chant, Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. This is from the Brahma Samhita. We have got knowledge, experience that when a child is born, it has got a different source of being born. But Garbhodakshi Vishnu wanted the child to be born from the navel and not from the mother. There was no mother, but the father himself. This is called Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti. Every part of the body, every limb has got the potency to act like other parts of the body. We can see only through the eyes, but God can see with his finger. That is God. We can eat only through the mouth, but God can eat from any part of his body. If he simply touches with his toe, he can eat. If he simply glances over the food that's been offered to him, he can eat it that way. Therefore, we're sometimes surprised, how is he eating? Like sometimes when we offer the food to Krishna, but it's also there because he can eat it just by looking at it. So Prabhupada's saying he can do anything he wants from any part of his body, but it seems like the navel is a good place for connecting, because it's a good place for connecting tubes, right? I think that's the answer. I can't do any better than.
Pretty good.
Karuna knows that verse. Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Galanchi.
Parent win.
Huh?
Parent win.
Parent win with that one. I hope that's okay, Karuna. I hope that helps. It's the best we can do. You okay with it? Give me a thumbs up if you like it. Okay, good.
Good, Karuna.
All right. We ready to dive in, Raghunath?
Yeah, I'm ready here.
Okay.
I just want to give an appreciation for this Bhagavatam, which is nice to have on your computer and your phone and everything. It's like this book takes you to every level of your spiritual life, especially going through, the mystery of what I'm going through right now too. Because the yoga system, if you really just get into the yoga system, you can live a happy life. It's just designed to bring your consciousness to sattva. And we have so many ideas of how to be happy in the material world, and people are pitching us different ways to be happy and places to go and things to purchase and lifestyle choices. But it's really quite simple. You have to learn the science of becoming sattvic to be happy. It's that simple. I don't care if you're the 1% or the 99%. If you're not sattvic, you're not going to be happy.
Right.
That being said, in bhakti, there's so much, the culture itself is so rich that it's like, wow, you can create an entire culture of being joyfully blissful, and rich, and with depth, with deep connections, with friendships, with music, with food. It's like it's a real way to be happy in the material world. Then, of course, you have these very heavy, stark verses of the Bhagavatam, and it's almost like the Bhagavatam really like it puts out a fork there again and again about bhakti, but ultimately you got to understand, like, there can be a hairpin turn at any moment. And, I think everybody's facing off with this,
You mean a hairpin turn, meaning like in terms of your sense of security in this world?
Your sense of security, your health, your I think a lot of people listening to the show have experienced this with health issues or with loss issues or love life issues and so I'm just reading these prayers in the Bhagavatam, and they're actually quite devastating and quite beautiful, because the things that we do take shelter of, which are healthy things, family, spouse, home, these are like normal things that people take shelter of.
Good things.
Good things. And it points it out to this, there's actually nothing except you and God. And all those other things are there to support you to get to you and God. And it really puts in perspective reality. And there's certain times where, you just don't want to read that stuff. And there's certain times where you do. It's time to read those things. Mm-hmm. So I've been, just because of my situation, like, I can't get any straight answers from the doctors, and I understand they don't know anything. They have no crystal ball. But I'm torn back and forth between these ideas of, living a Krishna conscious life and ideas of, what do they call that when we were younger? The Roach Motel. Roaches check in, but they don't check out. It's like my biggest fear is like, okay, it was a really confronting day for me when the doctor said, "Oh, you got to go to the hospital now," because there's a lot of times you hear, especially with COVID, people go in and we've heard it with Bhakti True Swami or these great souls that we love that checked in and just never check out again, and they don't let you see your children, and it became very, very confronting, and I had to do nothing but take shelter of the Bhagavatam. And I don't want to be a drama queen or a drama king, because so many people have much worse than I have. Even our listeners are going through a lot of times physical hell and cancer and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I think it's healthy to bring these things up, and it's healthy to have the Bhagavatam here for every facet of emotional support. The Bhagavatam really covers all bases here, as well as just a good read. You know what I mean? It covers us on you like reading novels, you like reading adventures, you like thinking deep about life. You want to refine the quality of your life. You want to talk about the ultimate connection. So I'm sitting here in pretty amazement. And I'm glad the Bhagavatam has been in my life. Thank all of you guys, actually.
Thank you, Raghunath. Well, with that, why don't you chant the opening shlokas glorifying the Bhagavatam?
Will do. Rayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devam sarasvatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is every means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshu badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya, bhagavati utamashloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. By regular attendance in classes in the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart become eradicated, and loving service to the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, will be established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My teachers are opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances at their lotus feet.
All right. Ready to get back into it?
Yeah, I don't even know where we are, my friend.
We are in Canto 3, Chapter 25. And I think the last verse we read was 27. Is that correct, Mara?
I think so also.
Yeah, okay. Do we have any announcements to make before we dive in?
We have Bhakti Recovery meetings today. I believe they're at 1 and 9:30 p.m. Okay. And then tomorrow morning at 6:30 a.m., Ariel Castillo is doing an asana class for Patreon members.
All right.
Ariel Castillo, thank you.
A morning thing going on. Okay, so we have Kapila Dev, and he's glorifying bhakti. He's answering questions about Devahuti's questions, and it's a little, unless one's a real scholar, it's a little hard to notice the nuances. But she's asking about 3 different types of yoga. She's asking about Ashtanga yoga, a more meditative path, and she's asking about Jnana yoga, which is a more analytical path, both requiring renunciation of home and family, etc. But she's also asking about Bhakti yoga. And when Kapil Dev is presenting any of these 3 yogas, basically his message here, and it's going to be his message for the next 8 chapters or so, is that ultimately Bhakti yoga is the most direct method, and these other methods, they become enhanced when you mix Bhakti into them. And that's a kind of a simple way of presenting it. And so with text 27, text 26 had to do with Bhakti, pure Bhakti, and text 27. Oh, did we do 27? Or are we on 27 today?
I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so
Sorry.
25 was that famous verse, which definitely has to do with bhakti, which is about like in the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and the activities of Krishna is pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. And by cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path to liberation. And thereafter they're freed, and their attraction for Krishna becomes fixed. And then real devotion, devotional service begin. And so that's a verse that's directly glorifying the very direct practice of bhakti. And then we read 26, I think with Doyle on Friday, which had to do with understanding mystic yoga or Ashtanga yoga with bhakti blended into it. And I think we're reading 27 now, which is about a jnanic approach, but also mixed with bhakti. When Prabhupada's translating the verses, he's kind of like emphasizing the bhakti side of them. So why don't you go ahead and read text 27? Can you read it today, Raghu?
I can read. For some reason it's not loading. What's my what chapter is Canto 3 chapter
25,
25 text
27.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read on my phone. All right. Thus, by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, but by developing Krishna consciousness, knowledge in renunciation, and by practicing yoga, in which the mind is always fixed in bhakti unto the personality of Godhead, one achieves my association in this very life. For I am the supreme personality, the absolute truth.
Okay, so you
Good
can see
promise right there.
Sorry?
Good promise right there.
Sure. And you can see, if you could just notice subtly, he's saying that by not engaging in the service of the modes of material nature, in developing Krishna conscious knowledge in renunciation. So it's saying like, he's speaking to that jnanic path, which he's going to describe in further detail by describing the sankhya system of analysis. But still here, what he's saying is when you do that for the purpose of knowing Krishna, when you renounce the things of this world, when you analyze this world and renounce it for the purpose of connection with Krishna, then you're blending bhakti into your jnana yoga practice. And that's when it becomes very effective and dynamic. All right. And so with that, then Devahuti has some questions to ask.
Okay.
Text
I'm
28.
hearing this statement of the Lord. Devahuti inquired, what kind of bhakti is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet?
Because it's different for everyone, right? Everyone has a little different kind of service.
Yeah. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand the truth that's in that sublime yoga?
Okay, so that's a reference to Ashtanga yoga now. So she's saying, tell me about Bhakti yoga. I want to know this whole subject very thoroughly. So I also want to know about Ashtanga yoga too. So when she says that mystic yoga system, she's saying, explain all these different methods of yoga. And yoga is, sometimes we define yoga as a practice which empowers one to overcome the obstacle of the mind for the purpose of the self experiencing its own true nature. And so the different yoga paths, what makes them all the same is that they are all, the ultimate aim of them all is to overcome the obstacle of the mind, to somehow gain control of the mind, to somehow cease being controlled by the mind, gain control of the mind themselves, and for the purpose of experiencing our true nature, which lies underneath. But what differentiates one yoga path from the other is that they each have a different strategy for overcoming the mind. And it's maybe the most challenging thing in existence is to overcome the mind. The mind is so powerful and influential. Remember, like in the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, what does Arjuna say about the mind when he hears this description of Ashtanga Yoga?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult to practice.
Even more difficult than?
Controlling the wind.
Than controlling the wind, right? Which we have really no.
I tried to do that once. It's pretty
did you? How far did you get?
I had a bed sheet. Tried to control it.
Okay.
Fail. Hey, Special K. Ariel Castillo's got a good question. She said, does Sankhya philosophy predate the Bhagavatam? I did a training that was deep in that, and I struggled to mentally connect it all.
You see, that's a great question. In one sense, all these philosophies are always there, but this telling of the Sankhya philosophy from Kardama Muni to Devahuti. Now remember, who's Devahuti? She's the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. Who's Swayambhuva Manu? He's the son of Lord Brahma. So we're going like right back, like we're going very, very, very back.
This is like before Noah.
Yeah, Noah. Well, it's like going way, way back there. So we can understand that this has been handed down for countless centuries. But then I imagine your question is like, where does it kind of like appear in the more modern context? And by modern, we mean like within the last 5 millennia or so, like that. So Bhagavatam, within the tradition, we accept this is like being spoken that meeting in Naimisharanya, where the sages got together, that conversation took place 5,000 years ago. So the way that those with faith in the Bhagavatam understand how Sankhya came about is, yes, Kapila Dev is the originator of the philosophy. He spoke it to Devahuti. That's where it all comes from. That conversation was repeated in the forest of Naimisharanya, and that's where we get in the Kali Yuga, in the Yuga that we're in now. That's where it's all coming from. Now there's another Kapila. There's another person named Kapila, not the original Vishnu avatar called Kapila, but there's another Kapila who explains Sankhya philosophy. But we see here in Bhagavatam when Kapila Dev is explaining Sankhya, which again is this analytical, it's an analysis of the material ingredients and a separating of oneself from it so that one can understand one's spiritual nature. When the original Kapila is explaining it, he's always explaining it in the context of devotion. Like, in other words, the value of being able to make this analysis is that it's going to free me up from all my desires that bind me so that I can reconnect with Lord Vishnu or with Lord Krishna. Mm. Whereas the other Kapila that comes later in history, his explanation is more atheistic. It's more like I'm just trying to separate myself from the material ingredients so I can be free from suffering. But there's no conception of the love that can arise in one's heart when one hits that position. So it's likely that the course that you were hearing was maybe from this other more modern Sankhya tradition.
Can I jump in a sec?
Sure.
I think when you're studying yoga in the West, there is a play between, this is what the old books say, but this is what we know. And we like to lean heavy with what scholars know. And when you're dealing with scholars, you're dealing with people's speculation chronologically, when things came. When you deal with what the books of yoga teach is, this stuff is eternal. You know what I mean? So it's like almost like everybody's vying for, well, mine's older, or mine's older, and this is where it began. But the idea is like, truth is always there, and there's different ways to approach truth. And we accept it as it is taught in the Vedas, meaning there's always been love of God. There was no origin of love of God. As long as there's been a soul, and as long as there's been God, there's been certain souls, certain demographics of souls who want to fall back in love. And there's been a certain amount of souls that want to stay in illusion. We have that in our community now, and that's been going on forever. And then there's been other mystical beings who've and avatars or teachers or gurus or prophets that give certain instructions for certain people of how to get back. But I think when we are dealing with studying yoga in the West, you're going to vacillate between these teachers that sort of have, some faith in the Vedic system, but maybe they haven't fully opted in. I mean, we're coming from a very orthodox school of how to study yoga, which means yoga is older than time. As long that's a huge thing to accept. Most people believe everything has a beginning, a middle, and an end. Where we're saying yoga is an eternal practice because the soul is eternal. And even before Lord Brahma appeared, Bhakti was always there. Bhakti has always been there. It was there in previous millennia and previous Lord Brahmas. What do you think about that, Kaustubha?
I agree with you. Yeah, but for instance, when we come to something like sankhya, yeah, in one sense, it's always existed.
Sankhya existed too.
Yeah. But then there are, there's these kind of, if you were to walk into a university that's studying this kind of stuff and you started speaking about sankhya, they're probably going to go to what is it called, the Sankhya Karika, which is a work, I'm forgetting the author of it, but it's following in the footsteps of that other Kapila Dev. And so
Right.
but then, someone that knows more may say, no, but actually this is stemming from Bhagavatam, this
Right.
predates that. And so you could get into the conversation on that level, and like an academic way. But certainly these things have been handed down farther back than we can measure.
Yeah, I think there's a filter if you're going to play the academia game in the yoga system, because it's just, we're taught not to speculate from the get-go. We're taught to just hear what the Bhagavatam says and accept what the Bhagavatam says. So once you want to start, well, let's put a date on this, you're lost in a world of speculation that can always change, always be updated, just like
it always is being updated. Yeah.
World Book Encyclopedia is, Go get your World Book Encyclopedia from 1968 and you'll be amazed at how nothing is relevant any longer. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So again, Devahuti, she's inquiring about not just bhakti, but all the different yoga systems, but in the context of bhakti. And so that's what's going to be explained in the next 8 chapters of the 3rd canto. All right?
Yeah. All right.
What's next? What verse did you read last? 28? Yeah.
All
Now
right.
text 29.
My dear son,
Or text 30, okay.
my dear son,
Did we read 29? We did? How
Yeah.
many ways? Yeah, we did. Okay.
my dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. It is very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it, thereby feel transcendental happiness. So here's a big one. I'm not that intelligent. By the way, and I know you have a big, long explanation for this, but I just believe that it's hard to even guess what culture and society was like 200 years ago, what to speak of thousands of years ago. When a woman says she's unintelligent in this case, it's like there were so many different roles that men and women played. Up until the 60s, women couldn't control when they had children. They couldn't control their income, so to speak. Everything has radically changed within the last 60 years. So I think the education of women, it's probably this was a very normal thing. And now we have to wrestle with all these ideas of, are they less intelligent? I just think they weren't educated. But that's my very simplistic, that's the way, when I read things like this, I was like, yeah, it was like a whole nother world where women weren't the scholars. I never get that bent out of shape about this stuff, but what's your answer? How are you going to frame
What's
that
your
up?
question? We're reading this verse and it can sound like nails scratching on like a chalkboard, right? In other words, she said something, it's really how one interprets. It can be interpreted 2 ways. She might have been saying, I'm an unintelligent woman, or she might have been saying, I'm less intelligent because I'm a woman. Whatever it is, you could interpret it both ways.
Yeah.
But let's assume, and you know, if you interpret it the first way, this is common. Like, this is commonly the way that a disciple approaches a guru. When Sanatan Goswami, who's like incredibly brilliant, you know, like when he approached Sri Chaitanya as his guru, he said, "I don't know anything. I'm a fool. I don't even know who I am." Right. So it's the common way that when one approaches the guru, you approach like a fool. Like, what do I understand?
Thought of it like that.
So that's part of it. But if you were to look at it the other way and saying that she was implying in some way that she was less intelligent because of her sex, well, then the way that I would understand that is like this: is I think in this case, the way that she's using the word intelligence is specifically indicating like a particular type of intelligence, or even more specifically, like a particular application of a particular type of intelligence. So I believe that like here, the word intelligence is referring very specifically to what could be called viveka, which means like the unsentimental discrimination between what's real and unreal, or between like the self and the non-self, which is really what Sankhya philosophy is all about, and which is going to be coming out. And so like from a Jnanic perspective, or you could say from an Upanishadic perspective, the presentation of Vedanta, you know, the goal of life or liberation, you know, from all the illusory material energy, and the attainment of spiritual freedom is achieved through like hardcore renunciation. It means like cold-hearted renunciation, right? Like cold-hearted analysis and walking away from everything. That you have to leave your family, that you, you know, you mentally categorize your family is not particularly dear. They're just bodies and names in an ever-changing sea of mental, you know, transformation. And that kind of cold-hearted analysis, you know, may be more natural for a male, you know, and one can say, well, how is that, or why is that? And the point that the point that I think that I want to make here is that there are differences between men and women, you know, in terms, you know, if you study you know, through neuroscience or through endocrinology, you know, chemically, there are different chemicals running through our blood, and it affects how we think, and it affects our emotions. So the male psychology is generally, to some degree, more analytical, you know, which, by the way, doesn't mean necessarily that their analysis is more accurate, but it just means that they commonly operate from a more analytical mindset. And the female psychology is generally, to some degree, more emotional, more soft, more compassionate, more tender, more affectionate. And it doesn't necessarily mean that their emotions are more appropriate at any given situation, but rather that commonly they operate from a more emotional mindset. And it may be like, it doesn't mean that every man is like this and every woman is like that, but it's just saying in general, that's there. So studies have shown that females have superior emotional competence, right? Like a woman is her intelligence is more fine-tuned when it's like understanding someone's emotions, right? Like men can be like, sometimes can be just like oblivious. Yeah, obtuse. Yeah, and women may be like totally keying in because, you know, they have a different mindset. And is that coming from nature, or is it coming from culture? You know, and I think the answer, the answer that you gave in the beginning was like, it's a cultural thing. Like, in other words, in different cultures, you know, women didn't have the same access to education. Certainly true, and even true today in many cultures, you know, and even true today, even in different ways, even in our culture. So that's going to affect, that's going to have an effect. But also there's the chemistry within the body, and that's going to have an effect. And so in the past, you know, if you go before the real bhakti movement, you know, which historically, you know, like say you go previous to Ramanujacharya, which means like over 1,000 years ago, and like Shankar's teachings, which are the hardcore Jnanic teachings, are seen as particularly influential and important. Then the ability to advance spiritually had a lot to do with your ability to renounce everything, including your family, and a more analytical mindset, a less emotional mindset, will be important to do that. But, you know, what's important to understand, and what the Srimad Bhagavatam is making clear, is that with bhakti, there's no need to kill your tender emotions. And actually, it's a path of cultivating emotion, right? And so any practice of analysis when we're doing bhakti, when we're practicing bhakti, is always in the context of developing these tender emotions for God first, and through God for every living being. So therefore, we hear prayers coming from men in the Bhakti tradition saying, when will that day come when I pick up these beads and I chant this mantra, that tears are going to start pouring from my eyes? And I even like to, like in our modern, common experience, like I see, like when I'm sometimes, like when I'm giving a class or something, like when we were in Italy, we'd start speaking about Krishna. You turn around, Kali Brown, tears are pouring out of her eyes.
Yeah.
Ananda Devi, tears are pouring out of her eyes. And I'm thinking to myself, what is wrong with me? Is my heart so hard?
Yeah.
That,
What's wrong with you, man?
That I don't cry when I hear these things? Because that's really where we're supposed to be. So, when on the last show, when we were here with Doyle, we read this, I don't know if you heard it, Raghunath. I'll pull it up right now. It was I got it. It was from this Christian writer. Her name is Rachel Held Evans, and she was talking about like how we approach sacred text with our own motives, and we see what we want to see. And so she said, if you're looking for verses that support slavery, you're going to find them. If you're looking for verses that wish to abolish slavery, you'll find that too. If you're looking for verses that you can use to oppress women, you'll find them. And if you're looking for verses that which want to liberate and honor women, then you'll find those verses. Whatever you're looking for, you're going to find. Mm. And I think, we have to be especially careful when we hear a verse like this, that we just try to understand clearly, the context of it, and not that we impose anything on it. These texts have been used for centuries to oppress people, to hold people down, to limit people, to not allow people to fully flourish and to fully serve. And to this day, this happens. And to this day, even in our own societies, like I would say, even our own bhakti societies, it happens. And so let's really try to understand, what's happening here. Devahuti is obviously she's already been called a great yogini. She's already been called a great sattvi. And as we go through her questions, we can see she's incredibly intelligent. Like her questions are brilliant and fascinating and deep, and she's drawing out from him the most incredible answers. So it's not like she's a dummy. She's like a super intelligent yogini. And men and women may be a little bit different, but mostly we're the same. And we should be careful that we never use these kind of texts to limit anyone's potential to serve, anyone's potential to fully blossom, in their devotional service. So when I read these texts, it's are there differences between men and women? Yes. Are we mostly the same? Yes. And especially I like to think of, we need to be really careful that we offer everyone, man, woman, whatever, that the opportunities to that devotion that one has in their heart and the desire to use that to serve. We should do all that we can to facilitate that for everyone. Even lately a lot of these questions come up. Can women give diksha? Give formal initiation? And when we come to these questions, it's so clear to me. When you go to the texts themselves, people try, commonly are imposing different social ideas that are secondary to the primary. When we come to bhakti, we understand what are the primary considerations. Anyone that has bhakti in their heart can share it.
Well, that's why I like our tribe.
Yeah. Well, yeah, our tribe, and it's really Bhagavatam tribe, right? Like Bhagavatam is showing, the wives of the Brahmins, the gopis, that it has nothing to do with one's sex, with one's gender. It has everything to do with one's devotion that qualifies one. And when we see the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya, and we see the pastimes of in the Bhagavatam, and when we see how Srila Prabhupada operated too, that he was really willing and did, break many cultural barriers to facilitate the devotional service of women. We should understand, why did he do that? Because he understood the essence, and the essence is all that matters is one's devotion.
It's why we've been keeping the main thing the main thing. That's the main thing, man.
It's keeping the main thing the main thing.
Main thing is I'm in a little bit of Maya. I'm trying to get out of Maya by adding Krishna. And it's got nothing to do with my gender preference, my race. It's got to do with the devotion of the soul. And that's the transcendental vision that the world is calling us forward to give right now. We are spiritual beings trapped in a material body, and that's the main thing. And we're trying to wake up from that little nightmare.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Text 31.
It's our 8:58, man.
Oh, is it that late? Wow.
Yeah.
All right. We got any takeaways, Mara?
We do.
Okay.
There can be a hairpin turn at any moment.
Oh yeah.
Bhagavatam is there as an emotional support through all situations.
Yeah.
True.
Yoga is an eternal practice.
Yeah.
Bhakti makes the pursuit of knowledge effective. Renounce the things of this world and connect with Krishna through Bhakti-yogi.
Yes.
Bhakti is a path of cultivating emotions. Srimad Bhagavatam is the ultimate read.
It's ultimate read.
Anyone that has Bhakti in the heart can share Bhakti. And the navel is the magic spot.
Well, that's what I was wondering if we're going to get to anything about the navel, because the navel is the magic spot. The navel is the place that the tube naturally connects. I think this is essential, right? Anything else you want to share, Raghu?
Well,
How you feeling? How you feeling after an hour-long show?
I feel okay. I gotta pace myself, but maybe we do a sweet. Mara, you're gonna come over and read tonight. Maybe we should do Sweet Baby Krishna while you're here.
Sure.
And if I'm not up for it, you can just read and I'll just chime in.
Okay.
But the internet connection is pretty good.
Like 7 p.m. then? Because your visiting hours end at 8. 7 p.m. for Sweet Baby Krishna.
Yeah.
Just make sure you're getting the rest that you need to, Raghunath. I want to make sure we don't stunt you.
Can I just work myself really hard and grind myself into the ground? Is that okay?
I think that may have been what got you here.
Okay.
All right.
I'll make.
Anyway, so Mara put that message out to the various channels where that's happening. Okay. Check with your doctor. Make sure they're good with this, Raghunath.
Excuse me, doctor. We want to do Sweet Baby Krishna tonight. We just don't know if it's okay with you. Thanks, everybody.
Anyway, it's good to have you back, Raghu.
Good to be here. Everybody's smiling faces, love and support.
You know what, Raghunath? Yesterday, I did this online kind of thing for this seminary, One Spirit Seminary, all these seminary students. And they did this whole thing on Zoom where they did like a dance cam. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I thought that was only us.
They're biting our style. I thought we invented dancing.
That's only us, right?
Aren't we the only group of dancers?
They were dancing.